My wife was only 17 when she married me. On our wedding night, she knelt by my wheelchair, her eyes wide with curiosity and amazement. How do you hide the handle in this thing? She asked, pointing to my wheelchair. And your hands, why so many scars? Is your leg truly broken? Can you still, do things? Her incessant chattering filled the usually silent general's mansion, awakening a soul that had long been numb. Melancholy Fries reminds you, Guyu Jianshan. The main story begins. I had guarded the emperor's borders for 5 years, a duty that should have earned me a peaceful retirement, a wife, and children, but having grown up with him, I knew his true nature. Recent court whispers claimed the empire belonged to the Ji family, not him, and his resentment festered. The sword he gifted me, the power he bestowed, he wanted it all back. He even used my injuries as an excuse to strip me of my military command and arranged a marriage for me. The daughter of Master Carpenter Li from the capital, Li Xiangwan, is known for her bravery. General Ji, loyal and courageous, has served with distinction at the border. We hereby grant this marriage to commend his virtue. He sat on his throne, his eyes mocking. This marriage was meant to humiliate me, to ruin a young woman's life. I knelt, my body half broken, pleading with him. Your Majesty, the imperial physician says I haven't long to live. Please, reconsider this decree, I begged. Ji Xingzhan, the grace I bestow, you must accept. He replied, yes, we were merely ruler and subject. A ruler commands, a subject obeys, even unto death. This marriage, it seemed, was inevitable. Being far from the capital, I knew nothing of the girl, so I sent my subordinates to inquire. They returned hesitant, stammering, General, this young lady, they told me her name was Li Xiangwan, and she had a less than stellar reputation. She had been rejected by 3 suitors, and was skilled in none of the traditional arts, no music, no chess, no calligraphy, no needlework. Her only skill was working as a carpenter's apprentice with her father. If she's so unremarkable, why would anyone agree to marry her? I asked. Because her family is wealthy, they replied. I laughed. My subordinate, flustered, wrung his hands. General, you're not thinking of breaking off the engagement? You're laughing. I coughed a few times. It's not that the girl is bad, I said. It's that the world is insatiably greedy. They want both wealth and fame. Sigh, so be it. I hoped she was a resilient woman. When I passed, she would need to navigate life on her own. She wished to break free from societal constraints. I would offer the entire general's mansion as her sanctuary, ensuring her a life of joy. It would be no great loss to me. On the day of the wedding, I expected few guests. After all, the emperor's attitude toward me was well known among the officials. Yet, to my surprise, the emperor himself arrived, flanked by civil and military officials. In our youth, we often drank together, and he swore he would personally attend my wedding, acting as my witness. He wanted the world to know we were brothers. Today, he hadn't broken his word. I was pushed in my wheelchair before him. I hear there's a custom in the civilian world called piercing the 3 targets. He began. Today, I've come to celebrate your wedding. General Ji, will you demonstrate your skill? No sooner had he spoken than a servant tossed a bow at my feet. He hadn't come to celebrate. He wanted to humiliate me before all the officials. He knew my hands were injured, that I couldn't draw a bow, yet he intended to make a fool of me. I stared silently at the target far in the distance, a high-flying colored tassel. The officials stood behind him, a dark, silent mass, none daring to speak. Just as the tension reached its peak, a clear, bright voice suddenly rang out. Why hasn't the ceremony begun yet? Oh, it's so lively out here. The bride ran out herself, and lifted her veil? This is lawless, utterly unreasonable. The previously quiet officials erupted in whispers. They had heard she was unconventional, but never imagined she would be so audacious. Li Xiangwan, in a vibrant red gown, radiant and unafraid, stood before me. She bowed to the emperor. Your Majesty, the auspicious hour is approaching. Perhaps I can set the target? This is preposterous. This woman is uncouth. Indeed, a woman setting the target? Unheard of. Perhaps the mocking of the crowd pleased the emperor, for he unexpectedly agreed. Li Xiangwan smiled slightly, took the bow from my hand, and knocked an arrow. She seemed oblivious to the jeers and sneers. First wish, for a harmonious marriage and daily prosperity. The arrow flew, piercing the first colorful tassel. Bits of paper rained down, and the murmurs in the courtyard gradually subsided. A look of surprise crossed the emperor's face. She leaped with joy, then knocked a second arrow. Second wish, for the Emperor's longevity and good fortune. As the arrow sliced through the air, more paper fluttered down. This time, the crowd was utterly silent. She let out a cheer and reached for the third arrow, but I grasped her hand. She looked at me, puzzled. I drew a small crossbow from the handle beside my wheelchair and aimed it at the third tassel. Third wish, for Xiangwan to have a smooth and fulfilling life. With all her desires granted, a dense shower of colorful paper fell, and the faces of those present were as varied as the confetti. It was as if their decades of mundane lives had never prepared them for such a sight. They seemed unsure how to face the stunned emperor. He stared blankly at everything unfolding before him. Among the many guests, none had come with sincere wishes. They were all bound by power, either numb or indifferent. But my wife, like a fiery sword, had pierced through their hypocrisy. Amidst the colorful flurry, Xiangwan, her face tilted upwards, looked utterly delighted. She clapped her hands beside me, excitedly pushing my wheelchair toward the wedding hall. Let's go. Time for the ceremony. The first time I blushed in 27 years was on my wedding night. My wife's gaze was sharp. First, she happily scrutinized my wheelchair, fiddling with the mechanisms and the handles. Then, her eyes settled on my lower body. My face felt like it was on fire under her scrutiny, but she simply looked regretful. Ah, it's all right, she sighed. Even if you can't perform, General G, your face is still handsome. She actually said something so impertinent. For some reason, a surge of indignation rose within me. In 27 years, no one had ever called me handsome. Shouldn't I be described as fearsome? And besides, I wasn't incapable. But, she was still young. Her life was long. There was no need for me to hold her back, let her misunderstand. So, I offered a helpless smile. I've wronged you, I said. She waved her hands dismissively. I'm not wronged at all. You are, General. It's a pity about your physique. If you weren't injured, you could probably carry 4 or 5 sacks of corn at once. My family's corn is almost ripe. I tried to speak, but it felt like the air had been knocked out of me. My wife truly had a way with words. On our wedding night, a time for marital bliss, she declared me impotent and then dragged me off to study my wheelchair. Xiangwan, dressed in plain clothes, sat casually on the bed, scattered blueprints around her. She excitedly discussed how to improve the wheelchair, eventually sprawling across the bed, fast asleep, ink smudges still on her face. I shook my head and sighed, wiping the dirt from her face. I heard her mumble in her sleep, "He's back. The one who went off to war has returned." My heart ached slightly, and my thoughts became a tangled mess. Just then, a maid quietly entered. She glanced at the sleeping woman on the bed, then at me, and gently advised, "General, your leg needs regular acupuncture. The imperial physician has been waiting for quite some time." I pressed my leg, which was spasming with pain, and chuckled. I was so engrossed in listening to my wife talk, I didn't notice the pain in my leg. The maid pushed me out, as she had once served my mother. Her tone carried a hint of reproach. The lady is still a child at heart, never ending in her chatter. "General, you should mind your health." "It's all right," I replied. I like listening to her talk. My wife was lively and energetic. Previously, the vast general's mansion had been cold and empty with just me, but since she married in, I suddenly felt the mansion was full. "What are you hanging there?" I asked. For instance, I had been reading in my room, but the commotion outside was too great, so I decided to see what they were up to. "This is a rabbit lantern the mistress made," a servant replied. "She wanted to hang it, but the ladder is a bit too short." She went to find a pole. The rabbit lantern wasn't exactly pretty, but if she wanted to hang it, so be it. I turned to go back inside when suddenly, I'm here. I found a pole." I looked in the direction of the voice. My wife, stepping on fallen petals, came rushing over like a whirlwind, carrying my long spear. The servants in the courtyard all blanched, but she looked triumphant. "Look, I made so many rabbit lanterns. I found the mansion too dark. I almost ran into a wall yesterday when I came back." As she spoke, she climbed the ladder, using one end of the spear to hook a rabbit lantern and hang it from the beam. My subordinates couldn't bear to watch. "Mistress, this long spear isn't." I raised my hand to stop them. "What are you all standing around for? Go help the mistress hang the lanterns." I retreated to my dim study, a place where sunlight rarely touched. Since my injury, I had been perpetually melancholic. The spirit I had once forced myself to maintain now crumbled. It felt as though there was nothing left in the world worth my effort. Unlike the battlefield, where every nerve was constantly taut, fighting to survive. General, you clearly want to spend more time with the mistress. My subordinate's worried voice sounded from behind me. Why did you come back? I stared blankly at the figure outside the window. She was holding my long spear, trying to knock fruit from a tree. The spear was heavy, and she couldn't grip it steadily, so it struck a nearby crabapple tree, sending a shower of blossoms fluttering down. This made her laugh. In that instant, I surprisingly thought, if only I could move freely, then I could help her pick fruit and shake the crabapple tree. Thinking this, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. The imperial physician had said merely surviving was a blessing from heaven. Yet here I was, indulging in such foolish dreams. I should not disturb her. I should not become entangled with her. When she wished to leave, perhaps my heart would ache less. I returned my gaze to the book, a dull ache and even a sharp pain blossoming in my chest. I instinctively reached for the pills in my drawer. My subordinate quickly stopped me. The imperial physician warned against taking too many of these. You've already had 3 today. A sudden surge of anger flared within me, about to erupt, when a fluffy head suddenly appeared outside the window. Ji Xingjian, this fruit is so sweet. Try some. Li Xiangwan, her arms full, placed the fruit on my desk, her bright eyes eagerly fixed on me. My turbulent emotions inexplicably settled. She picked one up, took a bite, and exclaimed, I've never tasted such a delicious pear. I, too, picked one up instinctively, but with the first bite, a sharp sourness exploded in my mouth. Seeing my reaction, she finally couldn't hold back, burying her face and bursting into laughter. Ha 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 ha, tricked another one. How could the esteemed General Ji fall for that so easily? I helplessly put down the pear, trying to appear calm as I picked up the book beside me. She tilted her head, watching me, her sly eyes like a little fox's. Later, I learned that my wife had insisted on hanging lanterns everywhere because she was afraid of the dark. After our marriage, she didn't give up her carpentry work. It was then I realized her carpentry wasn't trivial. She was making complex wooden mechanisms for the military engineering camp. The work at the camp was demanding, and she often returned home very late. My maids had subtly hinted that now that she was in the general's mansion, she shouldn't be so publicly engaged, but I paid them no mind. She could always do what she loved, without changing for anyone. That day, she didn't return until very late. Concerned, I waited by the study door for 2 hours, before I saw her, clutching her small bag, jogging quickly under the eaves. It wasn't until I called out to her that her taut body relaxed, and she rushed over, throwing herself into my arms. Being unable to move freely, I could only embrace her with my arms. I looked at the head buried in my chest and gently patted her back. Why are you running? Why aren't you asleep yet? She didn't answer my question, instead awkwardly changing the subject. Couldn't sleep, just came out for some fresh air. Then I'll keep you company. She quickly pushed my wheelchair towards her courtyard. Who was accompanying whom? Really? I didn't expose her, letting her push me wherever she pleased. It was early summer, and the scent of flowers drifted faintly through the air. In the quiet courtyard, there were only the 2 of us. We moved through the scattered candlelight, our figures and shadows constantly shifting, like a fleeting dream. How was your day? I asked. Perhaps I was mad to ask such a question, but she didn't find it strange. Instead, she opened up. Ugh, don't even get me started. Today, the first thing that happened was my favorite hibiscus cake was sold out. Then I had another argument with them at the military engineering camp. And tonight, on my way home, Deputy Ma told me ghost stories. She chattered endlessly behind me, and I listened quietly, wishing this path had no end. They were right. I did want to spend more time with her. I had indeed succumbed to covetous thoughts. People are truly insatiable. At first, I just wanted to watch her from afar. Now, I wanted to talk to her. Regardless, she was now my lawfully wedded wife. In the limited time I had, I wanted to indulge myself, just this once. After that night, I started waiting for her to come home, from the study door to the mansion gate. Sometimes, I'd bring some hibiscus cakes, other times, a thick coat. Then, I'd wait for her figure to slowly appear at the end of the long street. This long, tedious process was something I savored. Perhaps it was because the one I waited for was full of anticipation, but I also knew, people like me shouldn't have expectations. Otherwise, the fall would be more painful than descending into hell. One day, I waited for a long time, but she didn't return. Realizing something was wrong, I immediately dispatched my hidden guards to find her. They returned to say she had been taken into the palace. Hearing this, my blood ran cold instantly. I had nothing left. I was fighting for nothing. Why did he have to take away my last bit of hope? What is Waiseline planning? Prepare the carriage. I'm going to the palace. Quickly, I frantically ordered those around me. My hidden guard cautiously glanced at me, then hesitated. Your Majesty didn't do anything, he said. He was just telling the mistress about the general's battles from before. What battles? Tell me. He chose his words carefully, stammering, unable to articulate them. But I only felt the violent aura around me almost impossible to suppress. After all, Waiseline and I had grown up together. He knew exactly how to twist the knife in my wounds. Your Majesty praised the general's bravery, he said. Back then, Jinzhou and Liqing were attacked simultaneously. To protect the greater cause, the general abandoned his own father and brother to fight to the death in the isolated city. In the end, he held Liqing. Such a mindset is rare. The taut string in my body suddenly snapped. I collapsed limply into my wheelchair. The hidden guard prostrated himself on the ground, not daring to speak further. Looking at the hibiscus cakes on the platter, I suddenly let out a cold laugh. Then I stared blankly at the end of the long street. Sure enough, I couldn't hold on to anything. I would lose everything. Back then, when Jinzhou and Liqing fell, I had to make a choice with the reinforcements I commanded. As Liqing was a crucial pass, I chose it. Meanwhile, enemy forces surrounded Jinzhou, and they massacred the entire city in 3 days. My mother had just sent our winter clothes to the frontier. They died without ever wearing them. When the news of my father and brother's deaths reached the capital, my mother was heartbroken and took her own life at home. I never even saw her one last time. They must have hated me so much, never wishing to see me again. Now, Xiangwan knew too. She would surely leave me. I stared blankly at the hibiscus cakes, wanting to pick one up, but my hand had no strength. Instead, I knocked the entire plate to the floor. General, it's time for your medicine, the maid said worriedly. The mistress probably won't be back tonight, but I felt as if my soul had been extracted. No, I said, I will wait for her to return. Even if she scolds me, or hates me, or despises me, I want to see her one last time. I want to say a proper goodbye. In past farewells, I always thought we would reunite. Alas, some people are forever left in yesterday. I never truly said goodbye. At dawn, that small figure appeared. She seemed very tired, her usually spirited head drooping, her face etched with exhaustion. It wasn't until she reached the mansion gate that she slowly lifted her head, her gaze toward me complex. Have you eaten? I asked first, almost pleading. She lowered her head again, murmuring, I have. I'm going to rest now. Then she slowly walked into the mansion. My heart clenched. She hadn't scolded me, hadn't questioned me. I would have preferred her to be angry than to see her lose her usual vibrancy. Perhaps she was afraid of me, afraid I would abandon her as I had my father and brother. After she returned, she locked herself in her room for 3 days, neither going to the military engineering camp nor seeing anyone, and I stayed outside her room for 3 days, like a prisoner awaiting judgment. I knew the blade hung over my neck, yet I still wouldn't give up. I had to wait for the blade to fall, had to wait for her to say she was leaving, until my old injury flared up, and the servants carried me back to my room. Illness descended like a mountain. My leg felt as though 10,000 insects gnawed at its bone. The pain so intense I wanted to bash my head against the wall. 4 people held me down and forced medicine into me before I finally passed out. My dreams were chaotic and bizarre. I dreamt of my elder brother. He was 20 then. I was 17. We followed our father into battle. I rode a snow-white horse behind them, smiling and waving to the cheering villagers on both sides. But my father and brother didn't smile. They just walked forward with stern faces. That was my first time on a battlefield. The scene abruptly shifted. This time, my brother lay in a pool of blood, and my mother stood beside him, her face contorted. I brought your brother his winter clothes, she said. You wear yours too, and come with us. Have you come to take me? I dragged my ailing leg toward her, but she looked at me coldly, pulling at the corners of her mouth. Yes, Xingjian, let's go. It's time. Go. Yes, I should go. The path ahead was strewn with bones, dark and damp. I felt a release I had never known before. She must have left, right? Another unspoken farewell, but perhaps it was for the best. I could just go, straightforwardly. Suddenly, I opened my eyes. Inside the room, only a single dim candle flickered. A few trusted subordinates were in the next room, discussing my condition with the imperial physician. I struggled to sit up, reaching forward. My wheelchair was just a little ahead, with a crossbow hidden in the right armrest. I needed to end this. The general is too troubled, I heard. Moreover, he has no will to live. Should we try a different medicine? We must find a way. Alas, even the most precious herbs are useless unless he himself desires to recover. Discussions drifted from the next room. I finally reached the wheelchair, extending my hand to grasp the crossbow in the armrest. Suddenly, there was a bang from outside, as if someone had crashed into the door. In that instant, I withdrew my hand. Xiangwan, dressed in her nightclothes, rushed in. She hadn't left. Instead, she ran over, lifting her skirt, and bounded onto my bed like a rabbit. Then she wriggled her way under my covers. The trees outside looked like old monsters. So scary, I don't dare go back. She nestled softly in the blankets. I was stunned for a moment before my face flushed intensely. I quickly spoke. You can't sleep in my bed. Get out. Quickly. I'll have someone escort you back. No sooner had I spoken than the person under the covers stretched out an arm and hugged my waist. No, I want to sleep with you tonight. I stiffened, trying to pull her hand away. I hesitated. Indecision was a major taboo in the army, but with Li Xiangwan, I had faltered too many times. No, get out. Quickly. My resistance was too weak. No, I won't come out. Her voice was muffled from under the covers. I was a bit at a loss as to what to do. After a moment, a corner of the blanket was lifted, revealing a small, flushed face. She glared at me, her eyes wide. You're so heartless. It's so dark outside. Can't you just let me stay with you? Her round eyes instantly shimmered with tears. She wasn't teasing me. She was genuinely upset. So I anxiously reached out, but she turned her face away, not wanting me to touch her. Yet, the hand gripping my waist didn't loosen. Fine, I conceded. If you want to sleep, then sleep. My tone was gentle, tinged with helplessness. She turned her face back, her eyes red, her voice slightly choked. Ji Xingjian, get well soon. Our family's corn is really almost ripe. My gaze softened. I understood. My wife was smart. She knew exactly what I had been trying to do just now, so she had found another way to make me stay. This time, it was my turn to turn my face away and wipe my tears. She had never thought of leaving, even knowing how broken I was. She was willing to be with me. I reached my hand under the covers, tentatively touching her shoulder and arm. Did you hit the door just now? Does it hurt? The next morning, I reached out to my side and felt only cold emptiness. Opening my eyes, I saw she was already gone. The maid came in with a bowl, glanced at me, and smiled knowingly. The mistress instructed me to tell you to drink your medicine when you woke up. What was this all about? On the second day, she just told me to drink medicine? As if nothing had happened last night. Don't laugh, I said. It's not what you think. The maid shrugged. I didn't say anything. General, are you willing to go out for some fresh air now? The mistress went to the ancestral hall. The ancestral hall? What was she doing there? My heart tightened. I quickly drank the medicine and had someone push me to the ancestral hall. Inside, all the memorial tablets were newly made. It was clearly her handiwork. A tall, ever-burning lamp stood beside them. My tiny wife knelt straight on the prayer mat, holding a spear. Third uncle, granduncle, father, mother, eldest brother, she began. I officially come to pay my respects to all of you now, not as Xingjian's confidant, but as a citizen of Daliang. Thank you for guarding Daliang, allowing its people to live in peace and prosperity. You are warriors. You are great heroes. My brother wasn't a warrior at all. He was afraid of death. He constantly talked about when the war would end so he could go home, marry, and start a few businesses. He wanted to till a few acres of good land. He wanted to be forever with the woman he loved, and take their children fishing and prawning in the river, just like we did when we were kids. My father always scolded him, saying he had no ambition, only thoughts of romance. He'd say, "What's so great about fighting? One general's success is built on the bones of 10,000. A great warrior ends up wrapped in horse hide, buried beneath the earth." Even though he said these things, he later died alone, defending the isolated city for 3 days and 3 nights. Emotions surged within me. The sun shone warmly on my body. My soul, numb for so long in this ailing body, seemed to begin to thaw. That day, I entered the imperial palace alone. The first thing Wei Zilin said to me was, You're still alive? He sat on his gilded, jade-inlaid throne, looking down at me, his eyes long devoid of the passion for a nation and people he once held.